Welcome to Author's Edge, where we engage in lively conversations with both emerging and seasoned writers, as well as publishers, artists, illustrators, editor, songwriters, etc., to explore the art of storytelling. Today, I want to welcome my co-host, award-winning Greg Stout. He won the Seamus Award, which is an annual award given by the Private Eye Writers of America to recognize outstanding achievement in private eye fiction. He has been on our show a couple of times and has written series with Detective Jackson Gamble. His latest is Long Time Gone. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I appreciate it.
And you have got not just Long Time Gone, but you've also got a couple of other books.
Yes. If I can just think of the titles, Woman in the Wind, The Gone Man, and Lost Little Girl. Long Time Gone will be the fourth in the series. These are books set in Nashville, Tennessee. They are private detective fiction. I've also written a couple of mid-grade fiction books, Connor's War and Gideon's Ghost, aimed at, I'll say, grade 6 to 10.
Okay. And we're also thrilled to be chatting with Tierney James. Welcome, Tierney.
Thanks.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
absolutely. Thank you for being with us. And you had a long drive today, didn't you?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
But before we dive in, let me share a little bit about Tierney's background. Before serving as a solar system ambassador for NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab and attending space camp for educators, Tierney served as a geo teacher for National Geographic. Her love of travel and cultures took her on adventures throughout Africa, Asia, and Europe. From the Great Wall of China to floating the Okavango Delta of Botswana, Tierney weaves her unique experiences into the adventures she loves to write. Living on a Native American reservation and in a mining town helped fuel the characters in the Enigma, Dark Side and Lipstick, and Danger series. With 23 books and 4 audiobooks under her belt, Tierney now enjoys working with writers in their quest to become a published author. Her new love is speaking at conferences and writers groups to help others avoid the potholes of being a writer. So welcome to our show, Tierney.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
You actually started out as a classroom teacher.
I did. I taught for over 30 years.
What-
And I taught from kindergarten to college.
Oh,
Really?
my.
Yes.
Well, that's a diverse background.
It is.
You want to tell us about that?
Well, I started out in kindergarten and got tired of that and moved up to the middle grades and then worked in, I also did taught a learning disability class for 8 years, which was really fun. Turned out that they were the smartest kids in the school.
Yes.
They really were. Some of those kids could read hieroglyphics and was on the Knowledge Bowl team. They were amazing. And then I also taught in junior high where I taught world geography. And then I moved on to college and taught that.
All right. What was the transition from education to full-time writing?
Well, I had always just messed around with writing. I had notebooks full of writing, but I couldn't be a full-time teacher, full-time mom, full-time wife. I just didn't have time to write. And back then they didn't have the computers where you could just whip out 3 or 4 pages,
Right.
It was on an electric typewriter that
I remember
you
that.
made more mistakes than you made complete sentences. So when my youngest went off to college, she goes, okay, now it's your turn to write that book. But, by that time I didn't have the confidence in myself to do it because I had never done anything. And I met a published writer and she says, well, why don't we just practice writing, see what you can do. And the first thing she read in mine, she goes, oh my goodness, you're really a writer. That's all I needed to start the encouragement, and I never looked back.
Validation is important, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
It is. It gave me the confidence to step out. And of course, I've learned a lot since then. And I really didn't know what I was doing when I started out, but
I tell people when they're writing something, don't give it to someone who loves you
exactly.
to be your beta reader, because they're going to tell you that it's swell.
Yeah.
And you really need somebody that can look at it with kind of a jaundiced eye and say, pretty good, but maybe needs some work.
well, what I tell new writers that ask for my advice, I said, well, when you get an editor, if you get your manuscript back, your baby back, and it looks good, then you probably want to get a different
They
editor.
probably didn't read it.
What you want to see is looks like when a vein has been opened over it,
Red lines.
because that's when you start to learn how to write, because that's the editor's job. And, they've taught me many things.
Yes.
So, what drew you to become a solar system ambassador for NASA? I mean, you went from being an educator to full-time writing, solar system ambassador to NASA.
Yes, and NASA I've always been interested in science and the space program. And I met several science teachers that were science teachers for NASA. And they said that it would be a good idea if I got into this program, which was a volunteer program. And they would have so many of those teachers each state. And all I had to do was apply. So I applied and they eventually accepted me. And so what you do is they send you all kinds of materials. And if a school or a library or community group ask you to come talk to them about what's going on at NASA, then that is your job to go do that. If there's an accident at NASA, they will give you some information in case the news media comes to you and says, what happened? So you're obligated for 3 years when you sign on for that. And it's really fun. You meet a lot of fun people.
It doesn't involve representing the Earth to other planets.
It didn't when I did.
We're not there yet.
It might now. It might now.
Well, don't we have a space? What is it?
Space Force.
A space force
That's
now?
a
have a
military
space-
thing, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Space Force,
and
we
we've also
do.
got people stuck up there who can't get down. So
Yeah, that's true too.
Right.
Yeah, we do. We
they would
do.
be ambassadors, wouldn't they? They could.
Yeah. And, a lot of people want to know, well, what do they do about this? How do they go to the bathroom? How do they fix their hair? What do they eat? And so you are telling them that, or you're teaching kids what you have to do to be an astronaut while you're in space.
That
And
would
so-
be interesting.
Oh, and they just have
I
so
think-
much fun doing it. So I
I
enjoy
would-
doing that.
Yeah, I would think that would be absolutely fascinating
Yeah. It was
to learn
really
all
fun.
about that.
Yeah.
So, were you a science teacher when you were teaching?
I was a geography teacher. But when I was a regular classroom teacher, I did teach science. But another teacher and I, who was a science teacher, we had an after school program it incorporated science and geography, because amazingly enough, they go together very well.
Yeah.
So we kind of worked together with that.
So you've traveled quite a bit. I'm unfamiliar with your books, and of course we've just met for the first time, but it sounds like you've been all over the world, or at least in many places in the world. Is that sort of an outgrowth of having taught geography? And by the way, I don't think they teach it anymore because people don't seem to be able to find Kansas.
Well, amazingly, about 1 in 4 probably couldn't find, according to National Geographic, could not find the United States
Right.
on a world map,
That's
even back
correct.
when I taught it. But yeah, they don't do that anymore because they're really concerned about getting those test scores up, and they don't test geography. But geography is really what makes the world go around, and you have all kinds of things are under that now: psychology, archaeology, geology, and now and I used to tell my college students, if you want a job with security, get your some degrees in geography, because the CIA and the FBI are looking for you. You would
In a
have
good way.
lifetime job.
In a good way.
In a good way.
In a good way.
Because they need good people that know what they're talking about. They need to know. The Pentagon needs to know when the dominoes start to fall. You can tell them why. So geography is very important, and we just don't teach it anymore.
I actually once interviewed for a job with the CIA
Oh,
way back when I first got out of school. And among other things, to sort of enlarge on your comment, they actually hire people who will study a particular country. And so let's say Ecuador grabs one of our tuna boats, and you're the Ecuador expert. They will come to you and say, how do we squeeze these guys without, dropping a bomb on them
exactly.
to get them to
Exactly.
turn these guys loose? So there are jobs out there in disciplines that probably a lot of people don't think about.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
You've been? Do you have a favorite place?
Well, probably China is one of my favorite places, and Botswana, where in Africa, where you get to float the Okavango in a canoe that's more narrow than this table, and you've got hippos and crocodiles out there. I didn't like that part. I just knew a hippo was going to raise up underneath.
They're ornery.
More people die of hippo attacks every year than lions.
That's true.
And they are vicious. So that was a little scary because you weight the boat down, and so you're kind of even with the water. So that was a little scary. I used to tell my husband if my mother knew I was there, she'd make me come home. So.
And you got to China. You got to
Yes, I went to China. I have a new book coming out, probably the first of the year, that takes place in China. It's part of the series. It's number 11 in the Enigma series. And when I was in China in 2002, I had never written a book, and I was laying that I had gone with a friend, and she was adopting a little baby girl. And I was watching her while she had gone out. And I thought, boy, this would make a great story. What if somebody came to China and all these different things happened? And so when I got home, I thought, I'm going to try writing. And I said, well, I'm going to have to back that story up. And that's when I came up with The Unlikely Hero. And I thought, am I going to be able to write that China story? Well, here I am on number 11. I finally wrote that China story. And it involves adoption, but China meant a lot to me. I loved going to China. My brother and I were just talking about that. It is just so full of history and beauty and art.
Now, you did walk the China Wall.
I did, yeah.
And how was that?
That was pretty amazing. I was pretty stunned because some of the steps are 6 inches deep, are smaller. And so, tennis shoes just not made to walk up those steps. And I saw one gal come running down the steps, and she was in high heels. And I thought, wow. I need to do something different. So, because you just have to walk very slow because they're very narrow, the steps going up to the top of the wall.
Yeah. I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
because they're small.
Yes,
and everything.
But high heels. Oh my goodness.
So you were there in 2002?
I was there in 2002. Yes.
Have you been back?
I have not. And probably after this book, I will not be allowed to go back.
Well, I wonder how much different it would look to you now.
Well, I tell you, there was a lot of machinery pushing stuff around when we were there. Yeah. And I wondered at the time, this was before the first Chinese Olympics there. And I wondered at the time, what is going on? And they have built a lot of infrastructure in
I read that they poured more concrete between 2000 and 2010 than we poured in the 20th century.
Yeah, and they were pouring them along fields that you could see people working, but on the sides of the fields there would be like cliffs and caves, and the people lived in those caves. And I've often wondered what happened to them.
Well, they're not there anymore.
Well, I don't know. No.
You also lived on Native American reservations.
I did, yeah.
Okay, and how did that shape your storytelling?
Well, as my family always said, I was never quite the same when I came home. It was the first time I'd ever been away from home. I lived on the reservation.
How old were you?
I was 21. Maybe I was going to do my student teaching there at the reservation school. I didn't have a car.
This was where?
Cherokee, North Carolina, okay. Which is probably underwater. I've been trying to reach out to people I knew there. So I lived in a children's home there. They had 2 boy cottages and a girl cottage. I got to live in the girl cottage, and so I helped out the parents. And in the mornings, I'd get on the school bus and go to school and teach, and then get on the school bus at night and come home because I have no way to get around. So it did very much. It opened up the idea of cultures and how they're so uniquely special. Native Americans are just very dear to my heart. I always have some kind of spoken thing about them in almost all of my books.
And how did that change your storytelling?
My storytelling takes, especially when there's a Native American, is that there's always something special about them. They have a special gift. And I noticed that about Native Americans then and now. They see things differently than we do. They're almost like on a higher plane. And so I hope to bring that into some of my books. Even if they are a modern day soldier, you think about the code talkers from World War
The
II.
Navajos, yeah.
Yeah, they have, there is just something very special about them. And when we moved to Oklahoma, and there's so many tribes there,
Mhm.
I felt like I had finally come home, because there were so many tribes.
Can you tell us one of the stories?
One of the stories is the Dark Side series is about a Pawnee Indian who was discovered. He was in a case in the Field Museum in Chicago. And a little girl grew up in that museum because her father worked there. And she would always sit in front of this case where this Native American was to tell her troubles, because she didn't have a mom. She just had a dad. And when she got grown, he came alive, and he came through because there was a terrorist attack going to happen, and he knew it. And so he came through to save her. And what was fun about that is taking a Native American from the 1800s and figuring out what they were like, and then putting them in a modern day situation. Like, for instance, turning on the lights. He thought that was magic. Drinking caffeine made him really strong. And just things how that might affect a modern day situations would affect someone from the early 1800s, especially when none of that existed. And so it was funny, how they would react, and pairing him up with a Chicago hardened detective, and them together was like yin and yang.
And in which series is that story?
That's the Dark Side series, the one you see on here.
This one?
This one.
Oh, that one.
Yeah. And you see
That's
Chicago in the
The
background.
Dark Side of Morning?
Yeah, Dark Side of Morning.
And now this is a series, right?
That's a series. There's Dark Side of Morning, Dark Side of Noon, which takes place during eclipse,
Mhm.
same characters. And there'll be a Dark Side of Twilight and a Dark Side
And
of
how many are in
Midnight.
this series?
There'll be 4.
There'll be 4.
Yeah.
Oh, and each one of them has 4, or?
You mean my series?
Mhm.
No, one series has 11, one has 4, one has
Oh, okay.
5 or 6. So
Okay.
Maybe you could, and we may have discussed this before we were on air. 4 series, generally, what are they?
my series?
Yes.
Okay, so the Enigma series is domestic thrillers. And what they involve, when you talk about domestic thrillers, we're talking about somebody like you and I who get caught up in kind of a dangerous situation.
That would be this one.
That would be this one, or an unlikely hero even.
Oh, okay.
So
Sort of like a wrong man story.
yes, and so in this case, this is a mom with 3 kids, and she finds something in her backyard, but she doesn't realize that it might be a bomb. She thinks it's one of her kids' toys and throws it in the toy box, and people come busting into her house and try to take her, and so she uses things like throwing flour on the floor to make them slip and slide because it's very slick. And so she gets involved with this Homeland Security group, and it's supposed to be a one-time thing. But by the end, she is a geographer, and so she's able to help them see things differently through her geography skills. And they decide that they're going to keep her, and but she can't tell her husband what she's doing, or her kids, or anything. She has to keep secrets.
Is she a continuing character in the
She
series?
is. Yes, and so it's a team, and they all work together. So by the 11th book, they're in China, and geopolitical things are happening around the world that are actually really happening that you don't hear much about, and adoption is at the center of that.
Okay.
And this one here that you have held up, that one takes place in Russia. I'll never be able to go there either. So after that book. And
Have you been there?
No, not yet. I won't get to go now. So,
You
but
may not be missing anything.
yeah. And so, yeah. And in the House of Miracles, that's like one
That's
of
this
its,
one?
yes,
The House of Miracles.
there's like 5 or 6 girls that grew up together in the Ozarks here in Missouri and in the Lead Belt. You may know where that's
I
at.
do.
And they all go off on their own way. One stays in Arcadia Valley. You probably know where that is.
I do know
too.
where that is.
Yes.
Yeah, I grew up here.
Yes. And so the lead mines are actually in Viburnum now.
Yes.
And so she stays there. So it's, I got to blow up a mine. I got to go to mine school and how to blow up things.
Ooh,
yeah.
that sounds like fun.
It
Yeah,
does.
it was fun.
Well, that sounds like
My-
lots
my
of fun.
husband
So
was a
how,
mine-
so how do you blow up a mine?
Well,
Carefully.
carefully.
You light the
we-
fuse. You light the fuse, and you run as fast as
Very
you
long
can.
fuse.
That's how you do it.
Oh, it's just like in the cartoons.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and
Acme explosives.
we lived in the mining area for about 24 years, and at 3:00 every day, underneath your house, you hear pop, 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 pop. They were setting charges for the next shift, so you could hear the
Yeah.
dynamite going off. And so one of the stories, the Rescued Heart, it's about a mine rescue team, but this one is one of the girls from Arcadia Valley, and she goes to Belize. And she is running from trouble. Of course, everybody's running from trouble of some
Sure.
kind.
Wow.
And I also brought the Mayan Indians into that, and but it's those are modern day as well. So,
Okay, you are listening to Tierney James on the Author's Edge, coming to you weekly on Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 7 a.m. on KWRH 929.com and KXOK 102.com, and Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. nationwide on the My Genre Radio Network. So, today we are chatting with Tierney James about her latest books, specifically The House of Miracles, Dark Side of Mourning, and An Unlikely Hero, which is the number 1 in the Enigma series. And there are right now 11 of them, right?
the 11th one comes out at the end of the year.
Is that your favorite series? Must be, since you've written 11 of
Yes,
them.
I have a lot of followers with that.
Now, you do a lot of strong female characters.
Mhm.
Okay. Why?
Well, I think women don't get the credit that they have. I mean, if you're a mom, you're tough. If you're a teacher, you're tough. You have to be.
Tell me
Yeah,
about it.
Yeah. And so I just thought, like the main character in the Enigma series, which is the domestic thrillers, that moms know a lot of stuff that you use for safety. We're like the MacGyvers of the household. And I thought, why not use that, to help people out, like use your geography to help out Homeland Security, help out what you learned when you helped the Boy Scouts, how to get out of a tight situation. And so that's why I did that, because I just think, just because, I read a lot of thrillers, Vince Flynn, Tom Clancy, all of those, and, they're strong male figures, and I like that. But I thought, well, what about women? We can do those kind of things too. And besides, it's fiction. Why can't we do it?
Right.
Do you belong to international thriller writers by any chance?
I did for a
I
while
was
when
gonna
I
say,
was
did you-
traditionally published.
Okay.
I certainly did. And at the time, they weren't as this was a number of years ago. They weren't as accepting of indie authors, but they are now.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Yeah, I do reviews for them. So
Yeah. And they are, I've noticed that they're very encouraging for indie authors now.
okay.
All right. In a couple of minutes, we're going to go to break. But before we go to break, I do want to mention Greg again. Our co-host has his latest book, Long Time Gone, which is coming out soon on Amazon.
This month.
It's coming out when?
This month.
This month.
This very month.
This very month. Not next month?
October.
Not next month?
No.
Not last month?
No,
Not the month after?
no, we're right on schedule.
We're right on schedule.
Yes.
You're sure?
Yes. And when
You're
we come back,
positive?
and when we come back, I want to talk about those writing schedules with you.
Okay.
Okay. And then, are you an author, publisher, editor, illustrator, songwriter, or artist looking to expand your reach? Advertise on Author's Edge to connect with passionate readers and industry insiders. With engaging interviews, reviews, and discussions, your book will shine. Why choose us? Reach thousands of book lovers, boost sales and visibility, target impact ads, trust host endorsements. Elevate your presence with Author's Edge. Contact us today, 573-714-1352, where authors and readers meet.
In 1857, the Dred Scott decision was a major legal event and catalyst that contributed to the Civil War. The decision declared that Dred Scott could not be free because he was not a citizen. The 14th Amendment, also called the Dred Scott Amendment, granted citizenship to all born or naturalized here in our country and was intended to overturn the U.S. Supreme Court decision on July 9, 1868. The Dred Scott Heritage Foundation is requesting a commemorative stamp to be issued from the U.S. Postal Service to recognize and remember the heritage of this amendment by issuing a stamp with the likeness of the man Dred Scott. But we need your support and the support of thousands of people who would like to see this happen. To achieve this goal, we ask you to download, sign, and share the one-page petition with others. To find the petition, please go to dredscottlives.org and click on the Dred Scott Petition Drive on the right side of the page.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchata and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open 7 days a week. El Potro, 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland.
The United States has a strong tradition of welcoming newcomers and refugees. The Welcome Corps is a new service opportunity for Americans inspired to welcome those seeking freedom and safety and in turn help strengthen their own communities. Welcome Corps is a public-private partnership that is inspired by what Americans represent to so many around the world, a beacon of hope and refuge. All it takes is a helping hand. Are you ready to learn more? Contact the International Institute of St. Louis at info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090. That's info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090.
Okay, well, you are listening to Tierney James on Author's Edge, and we're chatting with her about her Enigma series as well as some of her other books, Lipstick in Danger and House of Miracles. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is that you do audiobooks.
Yes, I don't actually record them. I have somebody else do them.
Okay.
But I do have 4 audiobooks. Unlikely Hero, The Rescued Heart, both of the Dark Side and Morning Dark Side.
Okay. And how did you get into that process? What tell us about that.
Well, Amazon thankfully has a program there, ACX, that you can easily, you go on and you have to put down, I think it's 15 minutes of the thing that you would want read as an audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, in the meantime, they have, I don't know, maybe a couple of thousand different kind of readers, men and women, and they'll tell them whether or not they do thrillers or children's books, or, you know, so there's a bio on all of them, and you can listen to samples of what they've read before. And if you think, oh, I like their voice, I like their style, you can put yours out there. This is an Unlikely Hero. You give a summary of it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking for somebody who can easily switch accents or do a woman or a man, you know, when you're talking.
Right.
And so you wait then and see if anybody, it's like going fishing, you know, you wait for a nibble. And so if somebody's interested, they will say, I'm interested. Then you send them the 15 minutes and they record it and send it back to you. Do you like it? maybe you don't. Maybe you get 3 or 4. You can go through them, and then you offer them the contract. And so there's several ways that when I did it that you could do contracts. You pay them an upfront fee, which could be very expensive, $300 or more, or you do a 50-50, which is what I did. And that means that every time I sell a book, an audio book, they would get half the profits and I would get half the profits, and I'm not out any money. And there are plenty of people that were willing to do that. I think that gap is closed a little bit. I think they mostly like upfront money, but there's still some out there. And then you wait for them. So you say, well, how long? They ask you how long they have to record it. And you can say a month, 6 weeks, 2 months, you want it by a certain time. And then they either do it all at once or they send you a chapter at a time and you listen to it. This is the part that I don't like listening to my own work. And so I have to go through and you listen to what you wrote, and maybe they mispronounce something. And so you highlight that and they go back and fix it. It's not a big deal. And so then hopefully they make the deadline. Now, the gentleman that did my Dark Side series, when he did the second book, a hurricane hit New Orleans. And then he lived down there, and he says, I just don't think I'm going to make my deadline. I said, you just take care of your family. You get it to me when you can.
Yeah.
And so, there are people that it's just like meeting other authors. You get to know them and you want to help them.
Right.
So it was a fairly painless, except listening to my own book,
Right.
But yeah, it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, Gail and I were at the Missouri Writers Guild annual meeting. It was here in St. Louis, and we heard a presentation from a young woman who, in fact, produces audiobooks. And somewhere during that discussion, she mentioned that, in addition to being able to select different voices, and there are some people who can do accents,
Right.
they also have AI generated voices. Did you brush up against that? Did anybody ever offer you that option?
Well, that hasn't been out that long, but no, not recently.
I mean, that seems
So
kind of creepy.
everybody that you had was a real person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And have you tried doing it with where there are multiple readers? That was another thing that she
I have
mentioned.
not done that either. And I know there's also like, I don't know if you've met Mr. McSorley. His wife sometimes will even write soundtracks, music soundtracks.
Really?
And that's nice. But no, I haven't met anybody. I have heard where you have 2 or 3 authors, readers. But that sounds like it would be getting expensive. Yes.
Question from the audience.
Question from the audience?
Have you chosen, what's your preference, a female voice for your stories or a male voice for your stories?
Male.
Okay.
Except for
And
like, for the male, for the thrillers, like the Enigma series, I have a lot of strong male characters.
Okay.
And I just thought a woman reading somebody who, went in like Rambo just didn't kind of work.
Okay.
But I did have one woman reader for The Rescued Heart, and she did a beautiful job. And I was very pleased with that. I've only got one in that series that's been read. So I'm going to have to decide if I'm going to do that again, use a woman to do that. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do or not.
It's interesting that you really preferred the man's voice for your series, for most of your series, as opposed to a woman, in spite of the fact that you have a woman strong main character.
Right.
In all the books? Are they all female lead characters?
Yeah.
Are they?
That's I find interesting.
Yeah. Well, and of course, in the Dark Side series, the Pawnee Indian is, he is a main character too, but if it had not been for the woman character, he would not have crossed over.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's just, when I tried to decide what to do, I put it out there for my readers, and I have a street team, and I also ask them, all right, if you were wanting to listen to this story, what would you want, a man or a woman to read it? And I think all but one picked a man. As I said, that's what we hear in our head.
Hmm.
The man voice.
Uh-huh.
Describe a street team. I think there are probably a lot of listeners who don't know what that would be.
A street team is somebody who are super fans.
Okay.
And I will send, when I get a new manuscript edited and ready to go, I send it to them first. And they read it. They tell me if there's anything that I've missed or wrong. And then when I say, okay, I want you to start promoting it for, pre-orders, they will start going on their social media and promoting me.
How do you develop your street team?
Well, when I first started, I would look at people who read my book several times, and I've got one gal that has read all the Enigma series 5 times. I don't
Wow.
read anything that much, but she did. And
I'm
she
impressed.
says,
I don't think I've read anything.
Yeah.
Well, no, I've read maybe 1 or 2 books 5 times, but that's it.
well, she had one question. She goes, "Oh, I wanted to ask you what was in the trunk of this one car. You said there was something in it." And I go, "I did." I said, "I'll have to go back and find that." But the street team will put promotion out for me. I'll say, at a drop of a hat, I'll say, "Okay, I've just made a meme. Would you put this meme on your Facebook page and tell them that this book is 99 cents or it's going to go on sale tomorrow?" And boom, they do it. And you can have 2 on your street team. You can have 20.
Do you pay
So-
them?
No. But what I do for them is I will send them chocolate or,
You
I
never
will,
go wrong.
no, chocolate's good for everything. Or sometimes send them a gift, and sometimes just a bookmark or a thank you or a Amazon gift card or coffee packets. I've done different things, a bracelet or something. I think when I did the rescued heart, I made necklaces with a heart on it. And one gal, wherever she went, like she went out to the ocean, she held the necklace up, said, "Read the rescue heart." Well, that's priceless.
Yeah.
Right. That is priceless.
And they will do, they're just so happy to do anything for you. And, they've become like friends. So they believe in you. They
Right.
lift you up.
Have you met these people in
Oh,
person?
yes, I have. All but one, I think. But I've met them all.
Are they all local?
Some are on the coast. Some are in Illinois, Missouri, Oklahoma. Yeah, they don't all live in the same place.
Okay. I wanted to ask you too about your writing process. I don't know whether I did the math in my head, but we're around 20 titles, something like that.
23.
23 titles. Okay. When did you write the first one, and how long does it take you to create a book?
I published the first one in 2013,
Aha.
but it took me about a year and a half, 2 years to write that.
Okay.
Then after that, I just started cranking them out. Last year, I produced 5 things. This year, I'll be lucky to get 1 out. So next year, I'll have a bunch coming out. But
I don't know how you do that.
what I do is, I think I brought even
Drink.
I bring a little notebook.
Lots of caffeine.
Lots. I am a coffee.
So I should quit with this decaf, huh?
No decaf for me. That's probably why I don't sleep at night. But I have a notebook for every single project that I do.
Okay.
I have the characters, the scenes. I have, if I get stuck, I will do a flow chart of possible scenarios that could happen. Sometimes I use those, sometimes I don't, but it helps me write. Like when I started the Enigma series, in book 2, I had an FBI agent. He had a couple of lines. Well, then when I got to book 4 in Kifaru, I needed an FBI agent. So I went back
So
and
you
got that guy.
resurrected him, huh?
I went and got him.
Yeah.
Well, he shows up every once in a while now. So I keep track of that. But when I needed the FBI agent, I thought, what was his name? So I had it written down in my book. I didn't have to go back to the novel and look it up. I already had it down in my little notebook. So I keep track of everything there. And even though I might write 10 different, Enigma books or whatever, they all have their book. And so it's like a Bible. We call it a novel Bible
Yeah.
or a series Bible.
Yeah. I would say I would create a resume for some of these characters because you
Yes.
try to remember their backstory.
Yes.
And I remember I was reviewing a book for somebody and I said, what was this character's last name? She said, I never gave him one.
Oh,
Because
cool.
I wanted to talk about him, in the review. And what do I?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Now, besides the series books, you also do conferences. You also do uh, training with authors, and you're coaching authors as well. Now, I also realized that I had met you a couple of conferences ago.
Between the Pages,
Uh-huh.
Springfield.
And yep, how to market a book someone besides your mother will read.
Yes.
I bought that book. I read that book from cover to cover. And it really did help me a lot. I want you to know.
I remember
Uh,
that presentation. I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bought the book.
I just wanted, when
It's
I
my fact. No, I do. I know I have it.
I think I have it.
Here we go.
Get it?
I got it.
Yeah.
There we go. You're going to sign it for me.
Oh,
no,
okay.
you did sign it for me.
Oh, okay.
There we
Oh, boy.
go.
Yeah. Well,
And I did read it, and it did help. And it helped a lot with the social media concepts that you put in here. Okay. So, yes.
yes, and I'm working on a workbook to go with that, and I updated that one. But yes, so I thought, I did a series of blogs that talked about some of the things that I put in there, and then I did a workshop, and I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do with all this information now? So I thought, well, let's just put it in a book. And and I tell, that book is not necessarily for somebody who's been writing 10, 15 years. They already know a lot of that stuff. But somebody's just starting out, they don't know that.
But the thing is even if you've been writing for 10, 15 years, sometimes you need a refresher course. And
That's
if you think about this also, 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't social media.
No.
Okay. There's a lot of things that exist now that even 5 years ago
That's
didn't
very true.
exist.
Very true.
Okay. So even though, you might think, well, you've been around the block before, you've done this before, you've done that before,
Mhm.
there's always things in the industry that can be learned
Right.
without a doubt. As far as I've just started in the industry about 4 or 5 years ago. I spent 39 years teaching. Okay. So I'm new to the industry.
39 years you'll never get back.
True, you're right. But 39 years that I enjoyed. So I had a good time. I'm a firm believer. If I'm not having fun doing it, I ain't doing it. Okay. So I had fun doing it. But getting back to your book, there's a lot of things in here that were truly helpful, being that I just started it. But I also see that there are things in here that were helpful for even somebody who was been in the industry for a while.
Yeah. Well, and as you say, things are always changing. Even like some of the things that are in there about Amazon, there's a lot of other platforms now that also do that, and that you can spread your wings a little bit.
For example,
Well, like universes. A universe is like when, let's say, you have a strip mall in a downtown big metropolis, and every one of those are apartment building. They did a musical several years ago, Apartment, and every apartment person had their own story, had their own backstory. So if you write a universe about that apartment building or that strip mall, and you say, okay, I would like for you to come in and write a story about the person who's on the second floor in 302B. And so your theme might be you're trying to get out of a bad situation or starting a new business. They all have something in common, but other authors can come in and write in your universe. So that didn't used to happen.
Right.
And a lot of people like universe books, and they do them for the military. They do them, romance writers do them, and they're very popular now. And so you could go in and write a novel or something like that and get new readers.
Right. You also can, Amazon isn't the only place to publish your books.
Correct.
Okay. There's Ingram Sparks. There are other places where you can publish your books. And,
Right.
and that in of itself is something that a lot of people don't think about. A lot of people don't realize.
Right.
So,
Well, and
that's
just starting out, I didn't know anything. And fortunately, I had some people that really were good at helping me. Well, I've progressed. I have 23 books. I've got a bunch of others in progress. I think I looked at my little box of flash drives, and I think I have 8 projects in there. So probably another reason why I don't get much sleep. But so there, when you have that many, like 23 books and a whole bunch of journals and all those kinds of things, I got to the point where I thought, I need a bigger audience, or I need a way to distribute it more. Amazon's great at distributors. They're one of the biggest,
are.
baddest boys on the block.
They sell 80% of the books.
Yes.
Yes.
But you have people like Ingram Spark, who has like 144,000 outlets. You can sit to libraries, and they push that in libraries and schools and
the big box stores.
yes, Target and so all those things. Like they take care of Barnes and Noble, they take care of Sam's, they take care of all these different places, and Amazon can't do that at this point. So it's kind of freeing to be able to do something else. And you've got Draft to Digital, who does the same thing.
Right.
Hulu, Lulu and Smashwords and just so many others out there.
Right.
But the thing of it is, people like Ingram Spark, they also put your books on there. They
Right.
put your books on Amazon too. So, that's called going wide. You're
Right.
on many platforms. And for many years, I was just on one platform, which was Amazon. And so stretching your legs is not easy.
No.
It's really starting over, which, I'm doing. And I didn't realize it would be so hard, but it's starting to come together now.
Right.
And so I see where that's going to be really good for me.
What's the biggest mistake new authors make when marketing their books? What do you think?
I think the biggest mistake they make is thinking one book's going to make them a number one bestseller.
Yeah.
When you finish that book, you get it all edited and send it in to get published, you just start the next one right away. Because the more books you write, the more attention you get. And if they see one book and they like it and they go to look for another one and it's not there.
It better be there. Yeah. You
Because
need a backlist.
Readers have very short memories.
Yeah.
And you have to have a backlist.
Yes.
And I started selling more books when I had more books.
hmm
And that is and also another thing I would say is write every day, even if it's one sentence. Do something.
I have
with
days
writing.
like that
Yeah.
where I write one sentence.
Yeah.
About the best I can do is maybe 500 words in a day. That's about
But
it.
still, that's good.
Yeah.
500
Well,
days.
it'll get done.
Yes, that will. And I think if you do those kinds of things and not just push it aside, you'll be successful.
Now you mentioned when you start a project, you've already kind of created we'll call it a storyboard for lack of a
Mhm.
better term. So you kind of know where these chapters are all going. Is that right?
Yes, I know what the beginning and middle and the end is. They say you're either a plotter or a pantser.
Yep.
Right.
And so I'm a kind of a control freak, so I like to know what's going to happen. So I know different things that are going to happen. I don't know how they're going to get there
Yeah.
all the time. So I found out that there's a third term, which is a plantser. So
Plancer.
Plancer.
So
Spell
I'm a-
that. Plantser.
Yes.
Right.
Plancer.
Yeah.
Planter. So I'm a plotter and a pantser.
It's a hybrid term.
Yes.
Oh,
So
man.
I know what happens at the beginning of the book. I know what happens in the middle. I know what happens to the end. I don't necessarily know what happens between chapter 2 and chapter 10
Right.
and how I'm going to get there. but it starts to unfold. Sometimes I know, but I'll have all these events that I want happen, and then I start putting them in.
Well, you're ahead of me with that. I know the beginning and I know the end, but it's that second act. And I sit there and I think, okay, what would reasonably happen next? And, I mean, aliens are not going to land and solve the case. So something has to happen, to get you from the beginning
But
to
that
the
sounds
end.
like a great story.
And maybe so. And when the reader finishes, he or she should be able to say, okay, I didn't see that coming, but it makes sense.
Yes.
It has to make sense.
Yeah. And as a writer, sometimes you think, I didn't know that was going to happen. Like when I wrote Rooftop Angels, it took place in Afghanistan. One of the main characters who, he was a drug dealer and he kidnapped the Secretary of State and he kidnapped our main character, the mom. He was going to die. Well, by the end, I had romanticized him, or he had done such good things for these little children that I thought,
I can't kill that guy.
Well, he just keeps popping up, through the series.
Well, actually, I got an idea from you while we were sitting here talking about a way to handle a chapter that I wasn't sure what to do with. So thanks for being here.
Yeah.
I'll give you a shout out in the introduction.
All right, thanks.
So how do you balance your creativity and your business in the booking and in book marketing? How do you make your balance work?
Well, I like to go to book events, and I also like to.
I do too. I love going to book events.
I do, and I like meeting readers, and they give me so many. I
don't even write books. I help people write their books. I'm a publishing coach.
Yeah.
And I help people with their books. But I love going to books.
Well, one of the things I do to balance that creativity is I love to make swag. To give to the readers.
Right.
I'm always looking for that thing. One thing I have come across that I like to do is a blind date with the book, or blind date with a hero. And so I learned how to wrap them very creatively and put all these cool things on the outside. And they just snatch those up.
Yes, they do.
And I thought, well, how fun is that? And it's not hard to do because, you can maybe you've got one of your books that now it has a new cover, but you still have the same book with the old color. Make them a blind date, blind date with the book.
Blind date with the book.
But I love doing that. I love working with the designer to make the covers. I have had the same designer now for all my books.
Mm-hmm.
When I left traditional publishing, she went in and made new covers for me. And that's a very fun process.
So what was the decision that you used to leave? You were a traditional publisher at one point.
I was with a traditional publisher, and I had several books with them. I learned a lot from them. The reason I left is because I was doing the same amount of marketing and work and presentation for them as I did for my indie books. And I was making a whole lot more money with my indie books than I was with them. They were getting my money.
You're getting a little royalty as opposed to the.
Yes.
Yeah. So you made the decision to go.
Yeah. I think it kind of scared my husband. He goes, "Oh, well, why are you doing that?" I said, "I'm doing the same amount of work."
Right.
Right. And I'm making more money.
Right.
So that's all I had to say to him. I'm making more money.
And he went with it.
He went with that. Yeah.
Have you tried, let's say, online advertising or advertising in appropriate magazines?
Yes, there are a lot of different, where especially when I was exclusively with Amazon, there are a lot of online places that you can pay $60 for a special deal that you're doing with your book. Say you're going to offer it free, because Amazon is good to give you 5 days of free or remarketing every quarter. And so I would just rotate my books. I'm going to do this one free this week, this one free next week. And I get a lot. But once in a while, I would get the marketing and to boost it. And that would really help. So I did those. Like the Fuzzy Librarian, they're very good about that. The Fussy Librarian. and just so many others out there. I can always send you a list if you really want it.
Sure.
Now with Ingram, you can buy a package from them, a marketing, and then they have a newsletter they send out. And some newsletters do that.
Right.
I have
Yeah,
had
Ingram does. Ingram has a whole marketing
department
that they really push.
You can try to get in with Goodreads. That is the star that you'd like to get.
When we're off the air, I'm going to tell you a horror story about that.
Oh goodness! Well, I never have, so I've never gotten in. But and then I know Facebook and Amazon does. I didn't have any luck with Amazon. I haven't tried Facebook.
You do a
when you get
newsletter?
clicks, I do a newsletter.
How often?
I try to do one at least once every 2 months. I'm hoping to do one once a month.
Okay.
So, and I have a mailing list, almost 2,000 on my mailing
Well,
list.
since you handed me your card, you just found your way onto my mailing list. So.
Oh, good.
And I'm sure you have found him on yours too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will make sure that he's on yours.
Okay.
Well, yeah. She's got my card. So
Oh, good.
we
Good.
it's kind of like a shotgun marriage here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
But so those kinds of advertising things that I've done.
What advice would you give to authors just starting out their marketing journey?
I would say don't be afraid to try things. Don't expect that your relatives are going to read your work. I think the only person who read every book I had at the time before my father passed away is he read all my books, And I remember when he read the first book, I said, well, what did you think? He said, I'm very concerned that you could write about such mean people. He thought there was something wrong with me. So don't expect your friends and your family to market your book and buy your books. That might not be their cup of tea. And don't expect them to always be pushing it for you, because that's not fair to them.
Right.
But you need to take care of things. You learn how to make memes. Get on Instagram. Pick 3 social media things that's going to help you with marketing. There are so many social media, and they will drive you crazy. You will go down a black hole.
And you can't do them all.
You can't do them all.
Only pick a couple and
Yes.
concentrate on those
Yes.
and be experts at those.
Right. And do get a Facebook page because everybody looks at Facebook.
Yep.
Instagram, everybody looks at Instagram. And they're kind of fun.
They are.
Get on Canva. That's free. Get on Pinterest. I have a Pinterest board for every project that I do. I get pictures on there of what the house looks like, what kind of clothes they wear, what they eat, what they look like, everything. And that is a good marketing thing so that you can describe your characters. I've even had in my reader group, I let them name a character.
Ooh.
I said, this is the way she is, where
What
she's
was-
from. And then I said, okay, here's the contest. Who's going to pick her name?
Have you ever thought about reading excerpts on like a reel or anything like that, like on Facebook?
I have not done that. I don't
I
know how
was-
that would go.
I was thinking about that. Well, my husband writes books,
Mhm.
but he writes children's books. Okay. And I was thinking about having him just do a section on a reel and doing it on Facebook
I think that's probably a good idea. Yeah.
and having you do, and then having the writer, having your audience, talk about it or
Right.
say or especially if you're going to do a new book, have a excerpt of what you've written
Mhm.
and have them say, okay, so what do you think should happen next?
Right.
And have your audience give you feedback.
Right.
All right. I want to thank you, Tierney, so
Thank
much for
you.
coming in and
Thank
being
you.
with us on Author's Edge and
It's
chatting
fun.
with us about your enigma. Greg, thank you so much for co-hosting with me.
Happy to help.
You have several books on Amazon: Lost Little Girl, Woman in the Wind, The Gone Man, and the next book that's coming out this month
This month,
is
long time gone.
Long time gone. Now, Tierney, before we go, how can our audience get a hold of you?
Well, they can go to tierneyjames.com. That's my website.
Okay.
Or they can just put in my name, Tierney James, or
And Tierney is spelled Tierney, for those people that want to
Yes.
make sure they get it right.
right. And so I've got books on Barnes and Noble that they can find them there. There's a few on Amazon. They're almost anywhere, but if you put my name in, they'll pop up.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Tune in again next time for your favorite conversations with some of the most fascinating writers, artists, publishers, and illustrators. Our next guest will be Anton Strauss, and we will be chatting about his series, Jeffrey Wine's series. Till then, see you around the inkwell.